How's it going, everyone? How you doing? Oh, welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh, aka the Lonely Hermit, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into the week for Roundup. And ladies and gentlemen, it was a doozy this week. If you thought week 2 was bad, this week was pure dominance from all but one match. Honestly, you can make an argument for maybe another one not being super dominant, but there was just so much dominance this week. There was only one match that was 6-5, and the next closest match was 6-3, and then there was just a bunch of 6-2, 6-1s, and 6-0s. So this week was crazy for the dominance, but we'll get to that in a second. First up on the plugs, you guys should definitely subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel if you want to see more of me, which I know you do. Check out the other videos on the channel. You have the power rankings with Lionheart plays, the top 5 plays with Nate Tube, and the top 5 fails with Latin Luigi. So be sure to subscribe to see all that good stuff, and subscribe to all the other coaches in the description so you don't miss a single match in the Elite Battle League. Matches go up every Saturday, so you want to subscribe to all the coaches so you don't miss a single match. With all that being said, let's get right into this. First up, we have the reigning undisputed champion Forza Warriors, whose coach is Lionheart plays. They went against the Colchester Celtics in the championship rematch. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. The Colchester Celtics reverse swept the Forza Warriors 6-1 to improve to 2-2. That was a much needed win for Pidge and Colchester there. Now, I have 3 major points to make with this match, and the first one I can say right now because it applies throughout the match. First and foremost, Humberto brought the wrong ability on Lugia. It had pressure instead of multi-scale. Would this ultimately have made a massive difference? It's jury's still kind of out on that, because there was also something else later in this match that greatly affected the outcome and the momentum shift. But that already put Humberto on the back burner because Lugia is known for its bulky nature and its ability to just take hits, especially because of multi-scale. But because there was no multi-scale, Lugia's ability to tank immediately went down. So he was already at a disadvantage early. However, he did cover that because he started the match by taking out Zamazenta. However, Pidge was smart. He brought Light Screen on Zamazenta to take a hit from the Lugia, which Forza started with. So it was able to take one hit, and there was actually a big crit there on the Aeroblast from Lugia onto Zamazenta, which did matter because Zamazenta likely would have gotten off another hit onto Lugia. So that crit did matter as well. And that was just really smart from Pidge to bring Light Screen, knowing that both of Humberto's legends were likely to be special, especially the Mewtwo. So that was smart. But the crit definitely mattered. Zamazenta would have lived that hit and then hit Lugia again and got it even lower than where it was. But this is also where multi-scale could have come into play because Lugia would have taken the hit from Zamazenta a lot better. It took roughly 40% damage, if I remember correctly, in the match. But multi-scale would have cut that down quite a bit. So that was not fantastic. That's where one of the first instances where multi-scale definitely came into play. Well, honestly, probably the only instance where multi-scale came into play. But it could have helped later on having that extra health. But then Pidge chose to send in Jolteon and Dynamax in front of Lugia, who also Dynamax. So we had 2 big Pokemon going against each other. Jolteon used Max Phantasm in case Lugia didn't Dynamax and used Roost instead, which was smart from Pidge. And it did a nice little chunk there. And then Lugia used Max Quake to boost its special defense, which was smart. But then the next play happened. Lugia had the +1 special defense buff, but Jolteon hit a Max Lightning and it critted. Would it have killed regardless? Honestly, probably not. I mean, it would have been really close as to whether it would have killed without the crit or not. I don't think it would have. But it didn't really matter because Jolteon did crit and took out the Lugia. That was my second major point, because momentum swiftly shifted to Colchester's side. Whatever sort of momentum that Forza might have gained from taking out Zamazenta early just immediately shifted right back to Colchester. Humberto did send in Whimsicott to, I believe it stalled out one turn of the Dynamax, but it did manage to get up the Tailwind. Pidge used Volt Switch on Jolteon to go to his Solgaleo. And Pidge used Agility on his Solgaleo, which was very smart, knowing Mewtwo was a massive threat and being able to outspeed it was huge. So it was very, 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 very smart of Pitch to bring agility to be able to outspeed all of Humberto's team, and it paid off in dividends. And the agility was free as Humberto switched to Primarina from Whimsicott, who ended up getting one shot by the Wild Charge in the electric terrain, which I don't think would have mattered. I think honestly Wild Charge probably would have killed Solgaleo anyways, or would have killed Primarina anyways. But of course the electric terrain made sure of that. And this is where Humberto brought Whimsicott back out. This was a major point right here, because Humberto brought Whimsicott back out to try and use Cotton Spore on the Solgaleo. And Humberto, we've all been there. We've all been, hey, we all make mistakes. We've all been there. We've all done this, right? All of us, everyone. So do not feel bad. Everyone's done this. Everyone has done this. But it did cost him, because once, obviously, Solgaleo has full metal body, so Cotton Spore didn't work. Whimsicott got taken out by Solgaleo, and on the turn right then and there, the Tailwind petered out, which means there was no chance of anything outspeeding the Solgaleo. And that was pretty much it. Solgaleo then took out Barraskewda, Rapidash, and Mewtwo to complete the reverse sweep. And it was just, I honestly think it was just great prep out of Pidge. I think he did well to come up with some great tactics, and he outmaneuvered his opponent in this championship rematch. I won't lie, it was a little disappointing. Wish it would have been a little closer, because, you know, championship rematches usually are, except, well, actually, not last season. I take that back, because Bob handled Pidge really well. So maybe this is a new trend. I don't know. But yeah, there were some definitely big key points in this match. I mean, not bringing multi-scale, the crit Max Lightning, the crit Aeroblast also. I do want to bring that up on Pidge's side, but then the Cotton Spore on Solgaleo as well. Just a few different points that ultimately likely would have made this match have a bit of a different result. But regardless, Pidge showed exactly why he's been to 2 straight finals in his 2 seasons. Next up, we have the Texas Tyranitar versus the LA Inferno. The LA Inferno walked away with a 6-2 win. And honestly, the plan for this match was simple. I said it in my video: lead Zacian, Swords Dance, force the Dynamax, and hopefully get a kill or two. But more importantly, force the Dynamax out of Alan, and it worked. But the major problem for Alan in the first place was that both of my legends outsped his whole team. If they were both built into speed. Well, Zacian naturally outspeeds regardless. Naganadol's the only one that could have outsped was Blacephalon. The only one that could have outsped. But regardless, I still had plans for Blacephalon when it got to that point. But regardless, his one check in this match was Grimmsnarl, who I didn't even register in my match that he didn't bring. That was really stupid of me. But even then, he would have still had to predict everything I wanted from him to a T. Like, he would have had to known I wanted his Dynamax. He would have had to known I wanted a kill or two with the Zacian. I wasn't even really trying to sweep a Zacian. It was just more so to try and put myself into a favorable position, and honestly put Naganadel in a favorable position. The King Zacian helped my Queen Naganadel get into the right position and finish this match. But I let Zacian Swords Dance in front of his Swampert. That forced Alan's hand, and he had to make sure to get damage off in front of the Zacian, which he did with Swampert. He used EQ. This allowed me to take out the Swampert, but honestly, I probably could have clicked another Swords Dance. I just didn't want to risk the crit or the potential Play Rough miss. So I just went ahead and clicked Play Rough right then and there to try and take out the Swampert, which I did. And again, this opened things up later for Naganadel, because Alan went into Snorlax and went ahead and Dynamax. He kept a normal Dynamax, which is why I expected Max Strike. And I didn't even think about a Steel type move, which is what he used. But it was really smart of Alan not to click Stealth Rocks in the first turn with Swampert, and just let Zacian do what it's got to do, but get those hits off to make sure that something else can come in and kill it. Yeah, so Snorlax came in. Close combat brought it down to roughly 20%, I would say, if I had to guesstimate. Somewhere along those lines. Maybe even less than that, honestly. But regardless, the Snorlax lived and was able to take out my Zacian. Again, though, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted at least a kill. Zacian essentially got 2, honestly, and I forced the Dynamax out early. So that was massive. Like I said, Snorlax did well to wall Zacian, but I already had Alan exactly where I wanted him. I brought out Mimikyu, which actually ended up working out that it died and it didn't kill a Snorlax, as Blacephalon likely would have came in to get a free setup. However, Naganadel probably would have came in regardless and Dynamaxed and taken out the Blacephalon anyways. So whether it made a big difference or not is not really, honestly. But regardless, Snorlax took out Zacian and Mimikyu, but then Naganadel came in to try and finish the Snorlax. I correctly predicted that he was going to switch, and I clicked Max Ooze to raise my special attack, and that's when Yveltal came out and took a big hit, and then I was able to hit a Max Lightning, take out Yveltal, and from that point on, that was it. I outsped the rest of Alan's team and took out just everything. Yveltal, well, let me see if I can find my notes here. I took out Yveltal, Galvantula, Blacephalon, Darmanitan, and Snorlax, actually I think in that order, and got 5 straight kills. Which was big. That was huge. That's the first time Naganadel's really gone big in these matches. I guess against Nate it also did well, but it really went big in this match. But Zacian ultimately was the reason why Naganadel was able to do that, like I mentioned earlier. Alan would have had to A, save his Dynamax, which ultimately would have led to a sweep, and B, predict every single thing I was going to do. It honestly just like last season, it just was not a great matchup for Alan here, and ultimately I was able to exploit that with Zacian and Naganadel. Next up, we have the New York Metangs going against the Walton Wingles. The New York Metangs 6-0 swept the Walton Wingles to ensure the Walton Wingles have zero chance of making it to the playoffs. Yes, you heard me correctly. Unfortunately, even with the big improvements Nate made this season, he is officially eliminated from playoff contention. It was unfortunate. He had it. He had a plan, and we're gonna talk about this a little more in a second. It didn't go to plan, and ultimately Maxis was able to outplay and outmaneuver Nate to come up with a 6-0 sweep. It wasn't a clean sweep. One Pokemon did get all 6 kills, but it was a sweep nonetheless. But regardless, the match started with Malamar and I believe Togekiss right off the rip. Togekiss for New York, Malamar for Walton. Nate's plan, you could tell he finally brought contrary on Malamar, and it was to click superpower and then baton pass into Snorlax. He even said it, that was his plan, and let Snorlax go to work. However, that plan went right out the window with Togekiss outspeeding and getting a massive hit off onto Malamar. The problem with Nate was that he was banking so much on that to happen that when it didn't, he kind of panics. And like I said, while Nate continues to improve, he definitely has shown improvements this season. Now, while he continues to improve, he needs to learn to have multiple game plans in every single match and be able to adjust to those different game plans mid-match. I think his mid-match adjustments just, quite frankly, are not there right now where they need to be. He only brings one game plan to a match, and once that game plan goes out the window, that's it for him. He tends to panic, and the match is pretty much over from that point on. But Togekiss was able to take out Malamar. Nate, this is where I say he stuck a little too rigidly to his game plan. He switched to Snorlax regardless and Dynamax. However, he was completely stalled by the Rotom. The Rotom burned him. Nate even clicked Max Quake in front of the Rotom, which of course, as you all know, Rotom has Levitate, can't get hit by ground type moves, so that was huge. And Snorlax was neutralized right then and there in its Dynamax form. So he burned his Dynamax and just burned a turn on his own, but he got stalled out of the Dynamax by the Rotom. But this is where Rotom did really good work to keep the momentum going for New York, and it even took out Galarian Slowbro after essentially neutralizing Snorlax and basically taking it out of the match. But this is where Colosso came in, I believe, in front of Rotom, I think it was. I think I'm wrong on that, but this is where, regardless, Colosso came out. Nate brought Spikes, which I thought was an interesting thing. I think it was for Dialga, which isn't a bad idea, but it doesn't really touch anything else in the team versus Rocks, which hurts Rotom and Togekiss and does an okay amount of damage to the other Pokemon. I think Stealth Rocks would have been the much better play there, but regardless, it ultimately really wouldn't have mattered anyways. But then Gastrodon came out in front of Colosso and did what Gastrodon does. Celesteela came out to deal with the Gastrodon because of course it's a grass type. Gastrodon yawned Celesteela after Nate switched into it and forced Nate to go back into Snorlax. This is where Maxis smartly saw his opportunity, brought in Machamp and got one bulk up off because the burned Snorlax really couldn't do anything to Machamp. The only thing that would have mattered is if Snorlax's Flamethrower would have burned Machamp. But even then, I don't know that this match wouldn't have gone differently. I mean, not that he might have prevented the sweep, but it ultimately still would have been a win for New York. But regardless, Machamp was able to get one bulk up off, and then it took out Celesteela, Snorlax, Colossal, and Copperjaw in a row to claim the Mega Conference MVP and to claim the victory. I will say I do like that Nate is starting to feel confident with his battling and his prep. And like I said, there are improvements this season. There's definitely still more room there, particularly with his mid-game adjustments. And honestly, it seems like he only ever has one game plan, which is a huge problem in this game, especially because of how much luck is involved with Pokemon. So definitely still room for improvement, but I have loved what I saw from Walton this season. It's just unfortunate that Nate couldn't quite pull out his first win of the season. Next up, we have the Snowdonian Frostmoths taking on the Florida Rowlets. Jakey walked away with a 6-2 win over Florida to keep his playoff hopes alive. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, even though he was 0-3, he still has an opportunity to get into the playoffs, which is a storyline I really want to see happen. But first off, I want to mention that this match was played at level 100. Apparently, Mike picked the wrong rules. I think it's single battle, no restrictions is what leads to level 100. So it's unfortunate it was played at level 100. How much of a difference it would have made, I don't know, but still, it being played at level 100 was not great. But regardless, the match started with Inteleon for Snowdonian and Cinderace for Florida, which Mike automatically switched out of. It was an interesting switch. I know he knew, I figured he knew Inteleon would outspeed Cinderace, but what I'm more so questioning is why he went to Dracovish. On one hand, the water absorber's there, I get it, but on the other hand, JK loves clicking his focus energy, so you may as well either have trying to get a hit off or go to someone else. It would have, I don't know, Dracovish wasn't the worst switch in the world. I will say that. I don't think it was a bad decision. I just think possibly there were some other ways he could have approached that, but I guess you could say that about anything. But regardless, it did lead to Dracovish taking a ton of damage before Mike switched again. He went to Zeraora in front of the Inteleon, and it was another hard switch, so Mike Zeraora took a good chunk of damage there too. And it's funny because this was kind of the problem Jakey had last week, was a lot of hard switches by taking a lot of damage. A lot of hard switches leading to a lot of damage, rather. It didn't really go throughout the rest of the match that Mike kept doing that. It was really just the beginning of the match, but it automatically put him on the back foot, essentially. But I do like how Jakey played in front of the Zeraora. He sent out Quagsire to be able to take what the Zeraora was going to do. The electric type move was definitely going to try and hit Inteleon with. But it was smart of Mike to take the risk by switching it to Dracovish with Water Absorb. I do think right there Jakey should have just clicked Earthquake. It would have been a lot smarter, or Yawn. One of the two. Clicking Scald was taking the risk of the Water Absorb. So he definitely, at least, probably should have clicked Earthquake right there, just to try and take out the Zeraora, but definitely get a hit off on the rest of his team, because Earthquake, I believe, ran free on pretty much all of Florida's team. But once Dracovish came out, Quagsire put the Dracovish to sleep and rested to get itself back up to full. Dracovish did stay out, which was interesting, especially because it allowed Zaru to come in and get in a bulk up. It wasn't really the smartest decision from Mike to stay in with the Dracovish, because again, it allowed Zaru to come in and get up a setup. It wasn't a great decision from Mike. But then Jakey decided to Dynamax with the Zarude, of course, because it's set up. And he clicked Max Knuckle to take out the Galarian Darmanitan after Mike finally switched out of the Dracovish. And now, at this point, Jakey is +2 attack and +1 defense. So that Zarude is getting nice and set up. Rightfully so, Mike brought out Cinderace and Gigantamax. So Cinderace did hit Zarude hard on the first turn. It was left at about 60%. And the +2 attack Zarude returned fire, and Cinderace lived on lived on incredibly low health. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, what? A +2 attack wasn't enough to take out the Cinderace. If it did, likely would have led to a sweep, honestly, or at least rather Zarude was just clean shot from that point on. But it lived on 1, and Cinderace max guarded to stall out the Zarude's Dynamax, and then eventually took out the Zarude. So that was rough. Mimikyu did come out after that, and like I said, Cinderace was on incredibly low health, and at that point Jakey should have just clicked Shadow Sneak to keep his disguise, take out the Cinderace, and you're able to set up a Swords Dance later. But instead he Swords Dance first, allowed Mimikyu's disguise to go down after Cinderace hit U-turn. And ultimately, it may not have made a massive difference, but I just thought it was an interesting point to bring up. And then Mike, Jakey was confused. I was confused. Mike switched to Alakazam after this off the U-turn from Cinderace, and I don't know if he thought Alakazam might outspeed. I don't know, maybe he wasn't expecting the Shadow Sneak, but this didn't really make sense to me personally. And like Jakey said, Shadow Sneak is a pretty common move on a Mimikyu, so that was interesting. So of course Shadow Sneak killed the Alakazam, and then the Sleeping Dracovish came out, and then that died to the Mewtwo too. So that was 2 free kills that Mike essentially handed. Now the Dracovish was probably gonna die anyways, but the Alakazam maybe could have been saved for later, so that one was rough. But 2 kills to Mimikyu right there, and Groudon came out after this. Jakey made an excellent call right here by burning the Groudon and making the attack boost from the bulk ups that Groudon was doing essentially relevant. Jakey did switch to Comfey and set up a Calm Mind, which was great because obviously Comfey's special, Groudon's physical, and with the bulk ups that helps your physical defense, not your special defense. So him bringing in Comfey as a special attacker was an incredibly smart idea. Giga Drain on Comfey did a ton of damage to Groudon, forcing Mike to switch out. He went to Cinderace, which, I mean, at that point, I don't know what's better, letting Cinderace die to get a clean switch in, or just letting Groudon die at that point. It's burned. Its only benefit is its +2 defense. He made a similar sort of, I don't know if it's a mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake, honestly. He did the same sort of thing last week where he switched out of a +2 special defense Groudon. So, but the thing is that Groudon was burned. The Groudon was burned. So was there a point to really keeping it alive and switching out and letting Cinderace die? I really don't think so. But regardless, he did switch from Groudon to Cinderace, even though Groudon was in red. And Mike let Cinderace die to the Comfey to get a clean switch. Zero Aura came out and took a lot of damage from the Comfey, but ultimately was able to take it out. But then Mimikyu, of course, with the priority Shadow Sneak, was able to take out both Zero Aura and Groudon to close out a solid win from Jakey. That's right, Mimikyu got 4 kills in this match. It went big. And there were definitely massive improvements from Jakey from last week to now, as Jakey did well to outmaneuver Mike and ultimately set up Mimikyu in the right position to be able to rack up those 4 kills. Next up, we have the TJ Dropouts versus the Detroit Luxuries. The TJ Dropouts walked away with a 6-3 victory over Detroit. Now this week was almost a continuation of last week for Detroit. Max played very aggressive again this week and decided to just turn 1 Dynamax with Salamence and hit Max Steel Spike in front of the Sylveon that TJ sent out to one-shot it on the very first turn of the battle. So I like the aggression. I do like the aggression from Max. However, Smoosh brought out Garchomp to Dynamax, brought down the Moxie boost that Salamence got with the Max Wormwind, and the bulky Garchomp took a Max Airstream very, very well. Then Max clicked Max Steel Spike again to try and take another hit, but Garchomp hit Max Wormwind again and killed the Salamence to take it out. So that early game aggression ultimately didn't really do a whole heck of a lot. I mean, Sylveon wasn't really going to do much against the rest of Detroit's team, so losing Sylveon wasn't really a big deal for TJ, but losing Salamence was a much bigger deal for Detroit. So that was a big hit from them for Salamence to go down to the Garchomp. Blaziken then came out to stall out Garchomp's Dynamax, and Blaziken did baton pass into Togekiss and avoided a hit from Garchomp, so that was great out of Max to predict that and make these sorts of plays. Then Blastoise was hard switched into to deal with the Togekiss, and Smoosh smartly clicked Haze, I think on purpose this time, to try and get rid of Togekiss's speed buffs, which was smart. And then he clicked Mirror Coat, which he's been bringing that, and we've been waiting for it to really get some good damage off, which it did finally, because Togekiss clicked Dazzling Gleam, and the Mirror Coat reflected that damage right back, and Togekiss took a lot of damage. This led Max to swap, which was predicted by Smoosh, and instead of clicking Mirror Coat again, Smoosh clicked Scald, and the Gengar came in and took a nice hit, leaving it at about quarter health. However, Max, instead of choosing to hit Blastoise with an energy ball and get off some good damage, he decided to click Nasty Plot, which I can kind of see his logic, but at the same time, you know, either way you're probably gonna die, so you may as well just click the energy ball. And it died to Blastoise on the second hit because Max decided to click Nasty Plot instead and not attack. Smoosh just decided to let Blastoise stay in and go for it. Then Kyogre came out, and this is where it was very clear Smoosh was willing to let Blastoise die. However, the Blastoise actually took 2 Ice Beams from the Kyogre and ended up hitting the Kyogre with a Scald and burning it, which was huge. Obviously, Kyogre is a special attacker, but the burn does put it on a time limit that Smoosh can try and work around. Then Blastoise, I believe, did finally go down, and then Rillaboom came out to try and deal with the Kyogre. This, of course, forced Max to switch. And he went into Blaziken, who ultimately died to Rillaboom. So that baton pass strat just went right out the window right there. And when Blaziken went down, this was about the point in the match where I started to kind of feel like it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before Smoosh gets Max into the right spot, and that's that. And I also want to point out that at this point, Max was calling out a lot of wrong moves, even though like the move, so regularly the move would pop up and you know what move's coming, but he would say something else. So I think he was playing through OBS and it was blocking the moves. So maybe not the smartest decision on his part to play like that, because like I said, he multiple times throughout this match he was calling out the wrong move, even though the move would have popped up already. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. I don't know how much that has affected in this season. I barely noticed this week. So I'm very curious if that is the case. I'm honestly just genuinely curious, because like I said, he was calling out a lot of wrong moves even though the move was already popped up. So I thought that was an interesting point. But then Max ended up going into Gyarados after the Blaziken died. And Gyarados bounced in front of the Rillaboom, so Smoosh switched to Garchomp to get some chip damage on the Gyarados because of Rough Skin. However, Gyarados was eventually able to take out the Garchomp. Garchomp did take the 1 bounce, but then Gyarados hit Waterfall to take out the Garchomp. And then Cinderace then came in and used Acrobatics on the Gyarados. Gyarados, of course, used Bounce again, but the Bounce missed Cinderace, and Cinderace was able to take out Gyarados. And then Cinderace also used Gunk Shot to take out the Togekiss after that came out. And then it clicked U-turn when Kyogre came out and Rillaboom came in. And at that point, the only way Max maybe could have had a chance is if he predicted the Rillaboom switch and hit Ice Beam instead of Thunder. Instead, he clicked Thunder. Rillaboom came in, took the hit, and it finished the match with a Grassy Glide to take out Kyogre. I think Smoosh honestly played really, really well in this match. His predictions were on point. Like I said, I don't know how much the move misunderstandings were a problem for Max, but I'll give credit where credit is due, and Smoosh definitely played well in this match too. He just had a lot of good predictions. He was playing Max like a fiddle, especially after that aggressive start. Smoosh did well to weather the storm, get through that, and keep trucking on with the rest of this match. So he did well, and I think honestly it was a well-deserved win on the side of TJ. Next up, we have the Iowa Incineroar versus the DC Starmies. The Iowa Incineroar pulled off their first win of the season with I believe the scoreline is right, with a 6-5 win over the DC Starmies. This was honestly a well-played match out of Landon, a not so well-played match out of Timmy. I think he definitely could have made some different decisions throughout this match that ultimately just sort of dug him into a hole that he couldn't get out of. But this match started with Salamence versus Volcarona, and it was interesting because it was just honestly a question of who was going to set up. Because one of those Pokemon's going to set up. Salamence is going to hit a D-Dance. Volcarona is probably going to hit a Quiver Dance. So it was a question of who's going to set up here. Who's going to stand? Who's going to set up? Timmy was the one who did not set up. Landon clicked Dragon Dance on his Salamence, and Timmy switched. Now, the switch here is the interesting point. Because instead of going to Mamoswine, Timmy went to Alolan Raichu. He knew it was very likely that Landon was going to click Dragon Dance, but he still decided to go to Alolan Raichu, I guess, just to kind of feel out what Salamence was going to do. This, again, led to Landon getting off a free D-Dance and the Moxie boost after he used Earthquake on the Raichu. Mamoswine honestly probably should have come out in the first place to at least hurt the Salamence bad. But ultimately, it didn't, and Raichu went down early in this match to give Landon a free kill, which is a huge key for Landon. Obviously, he's down 2 Pokemon to begin with, so him getting an early kill really, 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 really matters, and he was able to do so. But then after the Alolan Raichu died, Mamoswine came out, used Ice Shard. It did crit, which I personally think 1000% mattered. it was able to take out the Salamence before it became a real threat. Then Landon brought out Alolan Raichu and clicked Focus Blast to hit the Mamoswine. Fortunately, he did hit the Focus Blast and was able to one-shot the Mamoswine and take it out. Timmy then went to Marshadow, which prompted Landon to switch out from his Raichu to his Incineroar to lower the Marshadow's attack, and then he proceeded to use what's it called, Parting Shot, to lower Marshallow's attack even further. And this is where Zacian came in. And honestly, if Landon was carrying Swords Dance, he probably could have swept from there. He could have just clicked it once and then took him out. He would have been risking the Spectral Thief though, so there's obviously a lot of risk that comes with that. But regardless, the Zacian came in after Incineroar Parting Shot, used Parting Shot, and was able to take out the Marshadow. So that's a huge threat gone early for Iowa. So that was big for them. And then Timmy brought up Volcarona in front of the Zacian. He knew he could take one hit, and he decided to get a free Quiver Dance because Landon switched out from Zacian to Alolan Raichu. And at this point, I feel like Timmy probably could have clicked another Quiver Dance, but instead he chose to just straight up Dynamax and take out the Alolan Raichu. I know Alolan Raichu was carrying Psy Shock, but Volcarona was going to take one. Definitely was going to take one Psy Shock. And Timmy could have gotten off another Quiver Dance. Would have been +2 speed, special attack, special defense. He likely would have one-shot whatever was coming in when he Dynamax. But instead, he chose to Dynamax immediately. He did take out the Raichu, but then Incineroar came in and stalled out the Volcarona's Dynamax. And if Timmy, we can't see Timmy's side, unfortunately. Part of me hopes he had a Bug-type move. And I guess if he did, why did he click it on the Incineroar? Because it was neutral. Because Timmy had one more turn of Dynamax in front of Incineroar, and instead of just attacking, he clicked Max Guard. If he had a Bug-type move, he absolutely positively should have clicked it, because it is neutral and it would have done some good damage on the Incineroar. And then once he fell out of the Dynamax with the Volcarona, the Incineroar still had one turn left. Timmy decided to click Quiver Dance, which again, I wonder if he had a Bug-type move, because if he did, why didn't he just click it? I'm very curious what his other moves were on the Volcarona. I'm guessing maybe a Poison and a Grass type move, because it didn't make sense for him to not just click a move and attack for 2 turns in a row. That was just interesting, to say the least, out of Timmy. The way he played his Volcarona initially was solid, and then just kind of went to crap after that. He really didn't play it too well. And I think he even said it in his video too. Incineroar was able to take out the Volcarona on its last turn of Dynamax. Mewtwo came in to try and take on Incineroar. However, it wasn't able to one-shot it, and it took a nice hit, leaving Mewtwo at about 25%. And then Mewtwo was able to take out Incineroar. However, Zacian was able to come in and finish the Mewtwo because it was on really low health, and Zacian was always going to outspeed Mewtwo. And then Venusaur came in, and it got taken out by the Zacian, the Psychic Fangs. Honestly, if the sun was still up, Venusaur would have won the match. However, I think it would have been very difficult for Timmy to try and keep the sun up for as many turns as it would have been. He would have probably had to use Max Flare on the last turn of his Dynamax, just to make sure the sun was up late, but he had used it earlier in his Dynamax. So the sun, by the time Volcarona died, there was only a couple turns left. So maybe he should have sent in Venusaur first. I don't know how much of a difference it would have made. But I think he definitely, having the sun up would have definitely won this match because of Venusaur. But I don't know if Timmy would have been able to do that and make sure Venusaur kept the advantage throughout the rest of the match. So it would have been really difficult. But that is a little bit of a talking point there if the sun was still up. But Landon outplayed Timmy for sure. However, I just don't think Timmy played incredibly well. There were a couple of decisions that just didn't really make sense to me. Again, like the Volcarona stuff. It just didn't really make sense to me. However, I'll give credit to Landon where credit is due. He placed Timmy right where he wanted him, and he did well to just go with an aggressive start and just go for it. And it paid off because his aggression in this match clearly showed, and Timmy was thrown off. And maybe that led to Timmy's misplays, was the aggression from Landon. So I think he played well. He outplayed Timmy and walked away with his first win of the season. Next up, we have the Carolina Garchomps versus the Montebello Morpeko. The Montebello Morpeko walked away with a 6-0 sweep over Carolina. It wasn't a clean 6-0. Reshiram did get 1 kill, but Zach Rom managed to just go ham and pick up 5 kills. This match was pretty straightforward. Honestly, Carlos sent out Reshiram to begin with, and Newt sent out Pikachu. Why he brought Pikachu, I don't know. And it got just obliterated by an Earth Power from Reshiram. So Newt went to Hitmonchan, who has actually done some good work this season, but it didn't really do a whole heck of a lot in this match. And I will say, the bottom of my heart, Fake Out is so annoying, and my god, it is on every single one of Newt's Pokemon. It is just annoying. I get it, free chip damage, all that good stuff, but at the same time, you're kind of wasting a move slot on something that could have a much better move. I'm just saying, I don't know. But Jesus, Fake Out is just his bread and butter, and it is annoying. I hate seeing it in the match. It's so annoying. But the Hitmonchan did actually manage to take 1 Psychic from the Reshiram. However, Newt decided to switch out to Blissey, and that's where Carlos switched to Zekrom, got up 2 D-Dances, and proceeded to get 5 straight kills. it Dynamax took out Blissey, Hitmonchan, Nagana del Salazzle, and 2-shot the Dynamax Zero Aura after it lived a Max Knuckle. So very straightforward sweep. Nothing too crazy about it. There really were no talking points aside from I guess Hitmonchan taking a Psychic is a talking point if you want it to be. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, maybe he should have Dynamax Hitmonchan, Max Knuckle, and then I think he had priority. I don't know. This was just a bad matchup, for Newt. The way we saw it, in not me and Carlos, just me and a couple people I talked to, was this match is probably not going to go past like a 6-2. The matchup was just too strong for Carlos, and ultimately the 6-0 sweep is honestly not too surprising from this. I don't think it's really just a case of the coach being bad. I think it's more so the team. We said it in the preseason roundup. The team didn't look particularly great, and it's kind of showing because Newt's 2 losses were both really bad. And then one of his 2 wins was against a handicapped opponent, and he still barely even won that match. So it's tough. It's a tough situation for Newt. I just don't think his team is very good. And I think that's ultimately what has bit him this season. But regardless, Carlos walks over the sweep and improves to 4-0. Next up, we have our final match from Week 4, the Greater Manchester Greninjas versus the San Antonio Espers. Lake didn't get swept. Finally, after freaking 3 weeks, Lake did not get swept. It wasn't a sweep. It wasn't a reverse sweep. It was 6-1. San Antonio did win 6-1, but he didn't get swept. So finally, Lake did not get swept. The worst he can do is tie the record for the most times he got swept in the season, I think. It's either 3 or 4. He can maybe still break it. I'm not really sure. However, this match honestly just felt like Sly was just playing with his food and didn't want to end up in the top 5 fails for bullying Lake. But on the flip side, it kind of felt like he was bullying Lake. Like, he could have easily finished this match pretty quick. I think he showed respect to him for showing a lot of respect to Lake, but at the end of the day, he probably could have finished this match really quick. It is what it is. I mean, the main talking point for Lake is that he did well to get his Corviknight nice and set up, especially through the Dynamax. It got a couple speed boosts. However, Rotom Mo came in and actually burned the Corviknight, which prevented the setups from really going anywhere. And like I said, Rotom Mo getting off the Will-O-Wisp was nice. And although Corviknight probably wouldn't have gotten more than 1 kill, which is exactly what it got. It got 1 kill. However, it probably wouldn't have gotten any more than that. Because honestly, Rotom probably could have killed the Corviknight a lot sooner. But eventually Rotom did take out the Corviknight after it fell out of Dynamax after Corviknight killed the Mamoswine. And then Blaziken came out, got the speed boosts, and took out Raichu, Decidueye, Glaceon, and Charizard to finish off the match. I mean, there's a little more fight at a Lake in this match than usual, which was great. I mean, I like to see it. But it was still fairly straightforward. And again, Sly probably could have killed this match a lot sooner. But he kind of played with his food a little bit. I don't know how I feel about that, but he did play with his food a little bit and just kind of prolonged this match a little longer than it needed to be. Again, he might just be trying to avoid the top 5 fails, which you guys should definitely check out, by the way. But yeah, this match was very, very, very straightforward. congratulations to all of our winners in week 4. Y'all played incredibly well, despite, I mean, there was just a ton of blowouts. So I mean, clearly some coaches played well. So congratulations to all our winners. But we are moving on to week 5. We have our eyes on the final week of the regular season. Yes, you heard that correctly, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final week of the regular season. This is where all the playoff spots are going to be secured. This is where everything happens. This is where all the drama happens. It is week 5, regular season, finale of the regular season time. And that also means it's prediction time. Yay. Woo. So let's get right into this. First up, we have the Fort Sill Warriors versus the New York Matangs. Now, a win for the New York Matangs secures them at the very least second place. If San Antonio does lose to Iowa, which we'll get to that in a bit, then New York has the possibility, I think. Actually, no, I take that back. New York cannot hop. San Antonio. So a win does secure them second place, though. But San Antonio's KD. Well, actually, never mind. Sorry. Let me double back on that. If San Antonio has a bad enough loss, New York can't overtake them with a solid win. So it is possible, but regardless, a win for New York does secure them second place. A loss kind of puts them with the rest of the pack, which is not really what they want, because then things start to get a little complicated with the tiebreakers. However, their playoff spot is secured. With their win this last week, their playoff spot is secured. They are guaranteed to be in the playoffs, or at least the play-in match. This match would have to go pretty bad for them to end up in the play-in match, but regardless, they should still have a chance to get into the playoffs. Anyways, excuse me. Fort Sill, on the other hand, a loss for them is a massive problem. They would need at least either TJ or Texas to lose to be able to maintain their playoff spot, or at least a chance to get in the playoffs. Because if Snowdonian wins and Iowa wins, then everyone's 2-3. So this is gonna be really interesting. However, this took me a minute. I think of all the matches this week, there's a couple other ones that took me a minute to try and figure out who I wanted to pick. This was one of them. I'm torn. I'm torn because I know Fort Sill has got swept twice this season, whatever. But it's still Alberto. He's still a fantastic tactician and a fantastic battler. So it's hard to really count him out in any match. But at the same time, Maxis has definitely proven himself this season. And has stepped up big time. He shows he's willing to do what it takes to win. It might not be the most entertaining match in the world, but he's going to do what it takes to win. So it's a clash of titans here. Holy crap, I don't know who to pick. I don't know who to pick. I didn't actually write a prediction. I wrote a prediction for everyone else, but I don't know who to pick in this match. We'll default to the champion, I think. We'll default to the champion. I'm expecting this one to be close, though. We're going to default to the champion. I'm totally not putting on a show for the video. But we're going to default to the champion here. I'm going to take Fort Sill over New York. And I think they're going to win here. But I'm only defaulting to Humberto because he's a champion. Otherwise, this match would I don't even really know how to call it. I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be a really close match. I really don't know. And like I said, I'm only defaulting to Humberto because he's a champion. I'm expecting this to be really close. But next up, we have the Texas Serenatar versus the Snowdonian Frostmoths. Jakey has looked good throughout this season, honestly. And especially last week, he looked really good. He outmaneuvered his opponent. He played really, really well. Versus Allen, who's been on a bit of a skid. He's on a 2-game losing streak. His week 3, he probably should have won. His week 4 wasn't very close. So he's on a little bit of a skid right now. I don't know where his confidence level is at currently. So it's going to be really interesting to see this matchup here. However, I think Jakey has just looked good all season. And honestly, I said it earlier in the video, I want to see this storyline. I want Jakey to get into the playoffs. If he wins, it's not a guarantee. It's not. He still needs a couple teams to lose. It's possible, though. He needs to win this match. If he loses, he's out. If he wins, he has a chance. He has a chance to get into the playoffs. I want to see that storyline. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Snowdonian. I'm going to pick Jakey to win this match. I want to see that storyline. I want to see Jakey get into the playoffs after the season that he's had, after the struggles. I want to see him rise up and get into the playoffs. That would be incredible, or at least the play-in match. I don't think he can secure a spot in the playoffs. I think a lot of the teams above him would have to lose really bad for him to secure a spot without the play-in match. But at the very least, get into that play-in match. I want to see that. I think that'd be awesome. And I want to see him rise up and get into the playoffs. So that would be really, really cool. For that storyline, I'm going to be picking Jakey in that match. Next up, we have the TJ Dropouts versus the Carolina Garchomps. The Carolina Garchomps, similarly to Texas, are on a weird sort of pattern. They win, then they lose really bad. Then they win, then they lose really bad. Well, that's not really like Texas, actually. I take that back. That is not like Texas at all. But Carolina is on just the craziest roller coaster this season. It's just up, then down, then up, then down. They just cannot, like, their losses are just bad. So I'm technically going off of history. They should be up this week. However, TJ has actually looked decent over the last 3 weeks. And Smoosh has been playing well with his predictions and his sort of outmaneuvering of his opponents. He didn't look amazing in week 3, but he looked good in weeks 2 and 4. So his season has been kind of the opposite. It's been down and up, down, up. But technically, he should be down here. So by history, I should be picking Carolina, but I'm actually going to back TJ in this one. I think they have a stronger team, more balance, and I think they're going to go ahead and win this match. I think they got this over Carolina, and that should secure them at least the play-in match for this for the playoffs. If Carolina, I'm not really going to go into the situation with Carolina, but let's just say that there's a very good chance they don't make playoffs. But yeah, I'm backing TJ in that matchup there. Next up, we have the Iowa Incineroar versus the San Antonio Espers. I'm going to go ahead and back the 4-0 team. We're going to back the San Antonio Espers. However, I say this every week. Landon has the tools to be able to pull off a surprise win. He did it last week against Timmy, and he pulled off a very solid win there. He outplayed Timmy really well, and he was able to walk away with the win. So this could be a really interesting match. San Antonio can't be dropped unless they lose really bad. So their first place is essentially secured unless they lose really bad, which they're guaranteed a 6-2 if they lose, I believe. So at the very least, they'll be -4, which actually I think that does mean New York can't catch up to them. I'd have to really calculate that. I don't feel like it right now. But I'm going to back San Antonio in this one, but I expect Iowa to actually put up a good fight. However, San Antonio's team is just really strong. So we'll see how Landon's able to try and how he's going to try and outmaneuver Sly in this match. But I am going to back San Antonio in that one. I will say Iowa has the slimmest of chances to get into the playoffs. They need to win, obviously. And they need other teams to lose bad. Let's just say that. So the odds of them getting in is still really low, mainly because of their KD, and because of the people who have beat them throughout the season. But there's still a chance. There's still the smallest sliver of chance for them to get into the playoffs. And again, San Antonio essentially has first place locked up. Next up, we have the Colchester Celtics versus the Walton Wingles. The Walton Wingles are one of 2 teams to have been officially eliminated from playoffs. There's no way they can qualify at all. Can't even reach the play-in match, unfortunately. Whereas Colchester, if they win, they essentially lock up 3rd place within their conference, and would have a date with either the LA Inferno or the Montebello Warpico. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm going to back Colchester in this one. Pidge does this every single season. He starts 1-2, turns it around, wins his last 2 matches, and then goes to the final. He does this every single season. So I'm going to back Colchester in this one. History is probably going to repeat itself. However, Walton's Trick Room team could prove problematic for Colchester. However, Colchester does have some slow Pokemon as well. So the Trick Room battle is going to be really, really interesting if they decide to go that route. If not, then I still think this is going to be a pretty interesting battle. This is a real test for Walton, honestly. Last week was a test for their one game plan that went out the window, but this week is an even bigger test, in my opinion. You're going against someone who's been established for 2 seasons and made it to 2 straight finals. So this is a really big test to see how far Nate has gone, how far his improvements have gone. Again, he's got nothing really to play for other than to try and upset Pidge. That's really the main thing he's got, because if Pidge loses, there's a sliver of the chance that he can possibly follow the playoffs. It's probably not going to happen, but it's the smallest opportunity. But it will likely push Pidge to the play-in match. But regardless, I'm going to back Colchester in that one. Next up, we have the Florida Rowlets versus the LA Inferno. The Florida Rowlets need a win here because a loss combined with a DC win means that Florida is likely out of the playoffs completely. So they desperately need a win here. Whereas LA, a win here will likely secure first place. A loss and they'll just fall to second. I don't really want a rematch, Pidge. That would not be fun. But regardless, LA, as I mentioned in the last video, LA and Montebello have first and second locked up. So it's just a matter of what matchup I really want, I guess. I'm not going to throw the match. I will tell you that right here, right now. But regardless, Florida more so need this win than LA. Because again, if Florida lose, there's a high probability that they'll be dropped out of playoffs. So this is a big game for Florida. I'm gonna back myself. I not gonna specify why. I'm not gonna specify why. But I am gonna back myself in this one. To lock up the first place spot in the conference. However, I expect Florida to actually put up a good fight. So this should be an interesting match. Next up, we have the Detroit Luxrays versus the Montebello Morpico. I'm going to back the Montebello Morpico in this one straight up. I'm going to tell you. Carlos has looked strong. Looking at the teams, the team looks stronger than Detroit's. I do think Detroit can cause problems to Montebello. I think there are ways that Max can get into this match and actually start to outmaneuver Carlos and start to use some of that experience he has in the EBL. But I think Carlos's team is really strong and is a really strong matchup against Detroit. So I'm going to back Montebello in this one. If Detroit loses and DC wins, DC actually hops Detroit. So Detroit really need this win. I mean, they really need this win. They lose, and there's an incredibly high probability they drop out of playoffs. So they really, really need this win. Versus Montebello, again, they're in the same sort of situation as LA. However, it is more likely for LA to secure first versus Montebello because of the better KD. However, it is still possible. If Montebello wins, LA loses, Montebello would secure first place in the conference. So still something to play for there. Obviously first place, but regardless, Montebello has top two locked up. And that's how I'm going to be back in this match. Next up, we have the DC Starbursts versus the Greater Manchester Greninjas. We're back in DC. The Greater Manchester Greninjas are the other team aside from Walton that are officially eliminated from playoffs. There's no way that they can get in, not even in the play-in match. DC, on the other hand, when they win, is that too mean? I don't know. When they win, it's just I hope Leak puts up a fight this week. I hope this is his last hurrah. I want to see some fight out of him, but history has not exactly shown that he's going to put up too much of a fight, especially considering Manchester actually went against a Mewtwo earlier this season, and my goodness, it did not end well. So I'm going to back, I mean, that goes without saying, I'm going to back DC in this one. I feel like I've already alluded to that. So, sorry, I'll say it. If DC wins, they just need one team to lose. They need one team to lose, preferably either Detroit or Florida. Well, one team out of Colchester, Detroit, or Florida. They need one of those teams to lose, preferably Detroit or Florida, and they can hop either of them and get into at least the play-in match because their KD is far superior to both Detroit and Florida. And depending on how Colchester's match goes, DC would be able to hop them too. So this is a big match for DC to try and get their KD up and make sure that they can secure a spot at least in the play-in match. So this is a big one for DC because if they lose this match, they're done. So they need a win, and they need a big win to make sure that they can leapfrog anyone who loses in the Dynamax conference. So, but I'm back in DC in that one, of course. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. If I did not pick you, this is to any of the coaches out there, actually. If I did not pick any of you guys, be sure to get out there and put up a really good fight. I want to see some fantastic matches to end off the regular season. Get out there and prove me wrong. And that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed the video and if you're here, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check out all these socials in the description. Be sure to subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel so you do not miss any more weekly roundups, any power rankings with Lionheart plays, any top 5 plays with NateTube, and then any of the top 5 fails with Lat and Luigi. So be sure to subscribe so you not miss any of that good stuff, and also subscribe to all the other coaches in the Elite Battle League so you not miss any match, especially this week. Again, every match goes up every Saturday, so be sure to check all the coaches out, subscribe to them so you not miss a single match. And I think that's it. Be sure to follow and subscribe as necessary, and of course be sure to share the socials with your friends, family, everyone you know. Let the people know the Elite Battle League where it's at. See you guys in the next one. Bye.